course, for them, it's marketing. They want to promote what they're doing. So you can see who they are, spokes, and they are very nice to share their Telegram channels and the email because they want to sell it, and they also offer support. So if you have a problem to set up the phishing kit or it doesn't work, you can actually contact them to get more information or more help on how to do so. This is an operation. It's not just a random 14 years old in his underwear in the garage. This is an operation that is intended to make money.
Welcome to Cybersecurity Heroes, an Iron Scales podcast about you, the heroes of cybersecurity. You're about to hear and learn practical and experiential knowledge in our conversations with CISOs, security directors and architects, SOC analysts, and other InfoSec stars so we can become more cyber resilient and safer together. Let's get into the show.
Welcome to Cybersecurity Heroes. I'm your host for today's episode, Brendan Rudd, Community Director at IronScales, an email security platform powered by AI, enhanced by thousands of customer security teams, and built around detecting and removing threats in the inbox. We offer a service that is fast to deploy, easy to operate, and is unparalleled in the ability to stop all types of email threats, including advanced attacks like business email compromise, account takeover, and more. Thanks for tuning in. Let's get into the show. Hey Yochai, welcome to the show.
Hi Brendan, nice to be here.
Thanks for taking the time to join us out of your busy schedule. I'm excited to discuss what you guys are up to and what you're working on these days. But before we start, can you tell our listeners a little bit about you and your background and what you're up to?
Definitely, with pleasure. Leading Cyberint for the last year or so. Before that, about, 23 years now in cybersecurity and intelligence, this combination. I think what got me started is my military service, like many other people in Israel. And I really had the joy to serve for 6 years as an intelligence officer. And from there, I learned a lot of, how this world works and how to conduct complicated operations. I think I'm sure I'm still an intelligence officer in my DNA. And that's part of what I also bring to Cyberint, which is an threat intelligence or digital risk protection company, and we can probably elaborate more about it later. Worked in different companies, started my careers in the product. So, this area between technology and the market, trying to understand what the market wants and derive it into requirements to the development team and support them. And from there, I moved into the business world, working all around the world from the US to Australia. I also have a hobby of hiking. I like hiking. So I had my own startup related hiking a few years ago, which I sold. So this entrepreneurship is part also in my, I hope in the DNA, right? Trying to do things, one person that three others may need, and sometimes you need three others to do. And in my last year, I completed my private pilot license. So that's what I'm doing also, enjoying to see Israel from the top. Well, as we cannot fly around the world almost anymore, right?
So there's never a dull moment in your life.
Trying to wake up optimistic and make the day fruitful.
So are you seeing similar trends in Israel that the best threat intelligence officers are going into threat intel roles in cybersecurity?
I think in Israel we have a few hundred startups, right, in cybersecurity. And definitely the people coming up from a cyber-related military background have a lot to contribute. So I believe this is the reason. Maybe I try to give an analogy that I sometimes try to provide on what is meaning to be an intelligence officer or what it means. And it's in the same lines of what it is to be a threat intelligence company. So in general intelligence, I would say there are three layers that you want to be able to achieve. The first layer, very difficult, is to be able to detect things. So for example, to be able to identify points of data that could make sense. If I go to the military world, you want to identify an anti-missile position, right? And maybe you want to find the binoculars that is looking for you. So this is identifying points of data. The second layer is being able to provide an estimation. What does it mean, this combination of two things? For example, it could mean that there is actually an ambush waiting for you, and those two points of data are part of a bigger puzzle. And with your experience as an intelligence officer, you're able to make this distinction. But the more important layer, which is the third layer, is to be able to influence the business or the decisions of the decision makers. So as an intelligence officer, I would like to tell the commander or the CEO, hey, with this information that I'm able to estimate, instead of sending the troops to the ambush, now that I believe there is an ambush, let's try to go from the sides and come from the unexpected angle. And by that, the intelligence position or importance is to be able to influence the business. Similarly, for us, I see myself as the intelligence officer of the CEO or the CISO of the company we work with. We want not only to be able to detect data, of course, that's critical, also to provide an assessment. What does it mean? What's the risk? Should they be worried on to what extent and what should they do? And then to influence the way they actually act, both in the strategic front. Should they go to mobile? Should they go to cloud? What does it actually mean? And help them make decisions that allow them to help the organization focused on safe business, right? At the end of the day, Cyberint vision is to be able to help organizations conduct safe digital business. And that's why we're here. So this is maybe try to make the connection between why the DNA that I brought up with, and it is really in the DNA, it's not something I learned, it's really in the blood, is the day-to-day how I look at things, how we can collect better, how we have more sources, then how we can have a better estimation of what does it actually mean, and then how can we influence our customers. We are not, as Cyberint, for us, it's not enough to give an alert. We have credentials or phishing site or whatsoever. We actually want to verify the customer received this and understood it in a way that gives us a feedback, whether it's valuable, was that a false positive? And if so, we have a continuous loop to improve our detection and our estimation and how we influence the organization. It was a long answer to your question, but I hope it gives some clarity.
No, it's really interesting. And I know we're going to go deeper into this a little later on, but a couple things jumped out that I would like to maybe expand on before we continue. So you talked about data points and then using experience to make sense of the data. So my question is, would you agree or disagree that with AI and machine learning and all these kind of innovative products would to some level circumvent the need for experience? Like experience is important, but would the innovative products be able to pick up the slack for lack of experience? So for example, self-driving cars, they are able to prevent crashes. Your risk profile is going to be much lower driving a self-driving car where the driver is inexperienced. I don't know if that's a good analogy.
So the answer here is yes and no, in a way, right? Our goal as a solution provider is to make the data more accessible and more effective and more actionable. At the end of the day, we don't want to provide data. We want to provide actionable information that influences the organization, as I said. So the question is, we collect, I don't know, a few millions of pieces of data a day, right? From dark web, from different sources. We can elaborate later. How do we classify that automatically? How do we identify the risk automatically without needing for someone to review this? And this could be, of course, in English, but also in French, Russian, and Mandarin. For this, you definitely need machine learnings and AI. I usually don't like to use those because for me it's buzzwords. You actually need to go one layer deep. So, for example, how do we create a classification mechanism to decide is it a fraud, is it account takeover, it's data leakage? How do we use the human element and the feedback that I mentioned before that our customers are giving us to influence the way we rate the data that is there? So we have a supervised machine learning algorithms, for example. So the input coming from the customers and from our own analysts will actually influence the next iteration for the machine. So definitely this is critical. But the challenge, and we know that with many data scientists, you need to ask the right questions. You can create data models and you imply an algorithm, a neural network algorithm on any data, and you get something at the outside. The question is, what is the problem you want to solve? Verifying you have the right questions, you have the right data. And for this, I think still you need experts that will help the customers, in this case, in your analogy to the drivers, spend less time on learning how to drive. In our case, have a better understanding. The information is really crisp and they know what to do with it.
Yeah, that's answering my second question. So basically, by investing the time in classifying the data correctly in the beginning, you're going to have better data, and long term, you're going to have to spend less time kind of fixing bad data models.
Exactly that, Yor. And that's an endless job, right? But you always need, unfortunately, you still need humans to try to make some decisions.
To your point, like it's a continuous evolution and a continuous learning. Threat actors change their tactics daily. So your experts need to train the model based on those changes, I would imagine, on a daily basis.
Definitely, there is a constant learning process.
So now that we've kind of set the stage, I would love to dive a little deeper into what you guys are doing at Cyberint.
We are doing something very fun and very valuable at the end of the day. We are trying to, as I mentioned, our vision is to help organizations become or to be able to conduct safe digital business. And the approach we took for that, or to this area, is by looking from the outside of the organization. And we try to do it with two aspects or 2 points of looking. One is from the outside at the organization. We're trying to identify what is an organization from the threat actor to try to do the reconnaissance stage of the attack, within the attack chain. The market call it attack surface management or external attack surface management, where we're trying by merely getting the name of the organization, identifying all the IPs and domains and subdomains and cloud assets, and even social media accounts and other things. So by able to identify the attack surface, in many cases, we're already helping organizations because, as you know, someone in marketing or in development can set up a new instance and the CISO and his team or her team never know what to protect. So this is a very big challenge, especially for large, complex organizations. So our goal is to be this external viewer that analyzes how the organization looks now and is everything is well known. And once we identify that, we continuously scan for any misconfiguration, any shadow IT, any problems in the attack surface that could be utilized by a threat actor. A simple example that we had in Israel a few months ago was a big ransomware attack on the insurance company, and it was merely because of an open FTP site that no one remembered because it was an old backup with an employee that already left the company. Again, I hope I remember the details correctly. So our goal is to find this FTP or S3 bucket or web interfaces is not well secure and tell the organization, hey, take care of that. It's much cheaper to take care of it now rather than to wait for the attack. And as we know in cybersecurity, it's all about being better, more protected from your neighbor or in many cases. So the threat actors will try to identify different targets.
Yeah, thanks. There are a lot of golden nuggets in there. So you mentioned earlier hundreds of startups. I would argue probably close to thousands, but I don't have the exact number. But anyway, my point is there are a lot of startups globally and, of course, in Israel. So why did you decide to start your company? What problem are you solving that others aren't in the threat intel space?
Yeah, maybe let's define what is the threat intel. Maybe go one step back to define the space. So today, and I know you can look at Forrester and Gartner and others, there's the threat intelligence space, and there's the digital risk protection and the attack surface management. We're actually in a combination of all three of them. The digital risk protection space is where, again, in my definition, is where you're looking at an organization and trying to create proactive alerts. So our definition here is to have proactive intelligence. Proactive intelligence is not saying, hey, there is a stream of IOCs that somewhere, sometime, so an IP or a hash or whatsoever, hey, by the way, if you see this hash or this IP in your SIEM or in your firewall or whatsoever, then you should block it or know that this is problematic. Because from my perspective, this is a reactive intelligence. This is trying to solve the last year problem or yesterday problem. We're trying to be proactive, meaning giving you intelligence that if you implement, you immediately reduce your risk. We have more than 75 types of different alerts that they're all proactive. So threat intelligence in many cases will be generic streams of IOCs, etc. These are important as well, but from our perspective, only half valuable to an organization that wants to build something of interest. So we understood that this is a problem. Being able to collect things from, or this combination, I would say, of being able to identify the attack surface, then understand what I need to collect, and then try to identify to create proactive intelligence. I don't think many others are doing it today. It just shows the importance of this problem. At the end of the day, every company above, I think, 500 to 1,000 people in every sector could get value from what we're doing. So there is definitely space for more than one. And also different companies have different ways of doing it. Collecting from the darknet, and that's just a buzzword, but in general, collection, like we scan the entire internet a few times a week, 3.5 billion IP addresses. This is a complex problem. And I think different companies have maybe different ways to solve it, and let the best man win, the company that brings the most value. And in our case, it's very easy to judge because we usually are put in a bake-off between other companies, and the company that brings the most information, the most alerts that are relevant, that are effective, is the one that is chosen. And I believe that this is the case, many times our case.
So would you say that's like the main deciding factor when you are in a proof of concept, that whoever brings the most intelligence, or is there more to it?
That's definitely a very important aspect, right? Remember the beginning. I'm in the intelligence, or Cyberint is the intelligence arm of an organization. If you don't bring intelligence, why the hell someone is paying you? So definitely this is a very big important part, A. But B, you need also to understand how you make an impact. So just having an intelligence that is just shared and no one is able to consume in an effective way doesn't bring it. So I would advise any customer to identify how the intelligence could be easily ingested into the organization. So activities could be taken to resolve the issues that are identified by the company. With this, we're meaning integrations with SOAR, SIEM, or ticketing, proactive feedback, etc. So that's another layer. And maybe another point is, in intelligence, you need to have a very easy to use product that you can share between different people in the organization. I think a mandatory requirement for any SaaS solution today, it needs to be understood without a user manual. We have a user manual, but it needs to be understood without it, the vast majority of the capabilities. But you also want a human element behind. I think we make proud in ourselves that we always have customer success manager, and in many cases also a threat intelligence expert that is working and with the customer. So whenever there's a virtual human, whenever there's an expansion or something, we're able to do it. I can give you an example from yesterday about the phishing. So actually, for one of our US clients, we identified a decoded message coming from an antivirus repositories just with an email address of one person. Only because we have a very experienced person, she decided in this case to work on encoding or getting back from the strings that are not understood by human into the code behind it, and we identified that it's part of a phishing kit. We went all a little bit back and identified also the domain it sends information into. With this, we went to the company, and they're identified they're already in the middle of a phishing campaign, and several phishing emails were already received by employees, and they were able to clean it from their mailboxes and identify the status. Now, only human in this case could understand this is something that is abnormal and make decisions to invest time and dig bigger and deeper, and this was the difference. So going back to your questions, intelligence is critical, but sometimes within a POC period, there might not be anything that is happening. That's also sometimes. So you need to understand what are the capabilities of the vendor you work with. Will they have the ability to protect if something will happen, right? What are the sources? What is the human element inside? And I think we are very proud that most of our employees coming with a very rich military government layer background, and this is something that is not you cannot teach in a university.
Yeah, for sure. I think that also ties back to you get a lot of the experience on the job versus taking certifications and boot camps.
I personally don't believe in any of this. It does reduces the initial learning. So what are the 7 layers? What is a proxy? And many other types of basic stuff that you don't want to waste time in teaching. But the reality and developing the senses is something that only on the job. And we invest a lot of learning within Cyberint. We believe that professionalism is actually part of our value, and we invest time in teaching. For example, every analyst will go through different courses over the year to verify they are up to date with different techniques. We have a lot of knowledge sharing internally. We learn from our customers. We ask for feedback. And now we've finished more or less the H1 management call. So I'm actually going to majority of our customers, talking to the CISOs, and ask them, hey, what's new in your business? What is your strategy? What are the problems that you see? What attacks did you have that maybe my team is not aware of? I want to get the big picture so we can influence the organization in a better way.
Great to hear. So I saw a couple of your webinars, and I would like to discuss some of the talking points. One of them was building a successful threat intelligence program, and I would love to know, why is a threat intelligence and digital risk protection key to any company's strategy? You talked about the 4 steps of that threat intelligence program. So could you walk us through those 4 steps? You can keep it fairly high level just for time's sake.
No problem. Yeah, I can talk about it maybe, I don't know, for hours, but at the end of the day, in Israel, it's very clear. You don't do anything without intelligence. Also in business, you don't do things without intelligence on the market, on the competition, etc. You cannot just work in an open void. Similar, I think, in cybersecurity. If you don't know what's going on, what is the risk to your company or to companies in your area or in your geography or in this industry, you are potentially are making the wrong decisions. So I believe that the first point is being able to gather pinpointed intelligence. As I mentioned, this is a very big problem. You don't just get things from the day. Darknet was created in a way that people cannot just access it and collect data. There are all kinds of anti-mechanisms, from complex captchas to you need to have all kinds of credibility in the sites, etc. So this is something that you need a vendor that really has high expertise. Many companies say, I know to do dark web, but what does it actually mean? What onions do you really cover? What sections in the onion? And how much time it takes you to collect the data? And there are many other questions that I would recommend people to ask. But at the end of the day, for a good intelligence program, you need the sources. Without sources, without data, you cannot go to any other layer on top. And I'm happy that I gave this analogy in the beginning. The second one is you need your intelligence program to be able to think like a threat actor. And a threat actor doesn't try to go where it's hardest. It's trying to go where it's easiest. So what is the data that is available around you outside that the threat actor can use? So did we find any templates of emails, for example, that could be used for reliable phishing emails or templates? Do we have any simple open ports that could be used by a scanner to identify potential vulnerabilities? Do we have any data in dumps that were released from Facebook to LinkedIn, data leaks? Or, of course, we process about 1,000 data leaks every year into our credentials database. So are there credentials out there that someone could use to try to brute force in or to guess? Sometimes we identify passwords that are the company name 123. And we know that if this is the password, even if it's changed, the next one will be 1234 or 124 or 123 with an exclamation mark. So this is the information that is out there. And while you are able to think like a threat actor and understanding what are the tools they have, you are able to anticipate potential steps and stop it. So you need to have that in mind. Then maybe you need to be able to have also mitigation capabilities. We understand that some things are happening outside, and you need to have tools to handle it. Otherwise, you identify the threat, and then what happening with the phishing site is still up there. Great, you detected it. And the question is, who is responsible? So we believe in Cyberint that we try to do the 360 degrees to cover the different angles from a single place. So once we detect the push of a button to ask, for example, for a takedown, and it's our responsibility to follow and verify it is actually down. So maybe these are some of the steps that I would take. And then remember, there's a human element. So I talked to one of our customers, a very large company, and I asked him, why did you choose Cyberint? And the reason he told me, I made a strategic decision that I'm not able to bring up and retain talent in my organization for threat intelligence. This expertise in different languages, this is a skill that takes a long time to learn. And if you don't have enough people, it's very hard to get the good ability to handle it, if we can say it this way. So he made a strategic decision to come up with a vendor that doesn't have only the technology, but also the human power with the expertise that can solve this problem and focus his own manpower. And we know how hard it is to find good manpower within an organization. Every company, both vendors as well as customers, or organizations have attrition rate of employees. They always want another better job with a little bit more paying, maybe new technologies in place. You want someone that is able to do it, and you can focus on things that you only can do internally, like from the SIEM to other technologies that you need really people internally that knows the ins and outs of the organization. So this would be my suggestion for this type of threat intelligence program.
Cybersecurity Heroes is brought to you by IronScales, an AI-powered, self-learning email security platform that helps security professionals proactively prevent, detect, and remediate phishing attacks in a matter of seconds, not hours or days. And we have an exclusive offer for our podcast listeners. Discover dormant phishing threats in your organization's mailboxes. Get a free 90-day scan back with a detailed report. Integrate in seconds with 2 clicks via API to Microsoft Office 365 and see what your current email security is missing. Go to ironscales.com/free scan to learn more.
Thanks. That was really insightful. And I would love to talk about the phishing kits that you mentioned. You illustrated through research how attackers use phishing kits and how easy it is to obtain and use. So can you talk to us some more on this subject? In particular, we were discussing the Spox phishing kit and TrueLogin phishing kit and how do each of these work. And I know you had some slides to share with us. So for people listening on the podcast, don't worry, I will share this on LinkedIn so you can see the slides from Yochai. But would you like to share those slides as we talk through this?
Definitely. Let me share the screen here.
We got to have a t-shirt for that. just like you're muted.
Yeah, put it there. Yeah, it's on the wrong screen. Let me share now. Let me know if that's working.
Yeah.
So just as a very basic reminder, phishing is where someone set up a fake website that is impersonating the brand that you think would attract people. It could be from post, it could be electricity bills, it could be the bank, it could be e-commerce site. There are many ways where people will be fooled in to surrender their login credentials, their credit card, or other information that could be used by the threat actors. Sometimes you don't understand why they collect things, but for example, threat actors may use driver license to go to some banks, digital banks, and actually open an account where they have actually legitimate documents that could be used to open accounts. And those accounts would be, for example, used to do all kinds of money laundering, mules, etc. So phishing is it's one part of a very sophisticated attack. We should always look at the bigger picture. But going back to the phishing, this is a basic phishing site. So in this example, we've identified many websites that are actually covering the same company. In this case, it's a bank in South Africa. And you can see that we've identified, here about 20 different phishing sites, URLs that are all targeting the same organization. And every day they put up one or two new. Of course, it's automated on their side. You don't need to work hard. And with this, we wanted to understand or go to the root of this attack and understand what is behind it. So we saw the mass and we saw the similarity. You can see the structure of the URL. It's all about NetBank money, NetBank, and just the domain more or less is the one that is changing. Great. So this is a phishing sites targeting someone. And we understand it's probably a phishing kit. And this is the most cost-effective way from a threat actor. So they built a tool that allows to spin off as many phishing sites as they want with the same cost. So of course, it's the cost or the effort to build it. Now, if I want to attack NetBank or any other bank, there are two options. One is to build a phishing kit, and then maybe I don't know how to build a phishing kit because I'm a good operator, but I'm not such a good technological person that knows how to use HTML5s and other technologies to do so. So maybe I can buy a phishing kit, and this actually opens a market, right? We're able to obtain the phishing kit from one of the sites. Sometimes the phishing kit zip or the code is still kept left on one of the folders within the site. So we're able to obtain it, and we can actually see the structure of the phishing kit. You see the different files that are seen there, all in PHP. And this allowed us to the next stage, which is go inside the code. So inside the code, we can actually see in the PHP, in the code itself, we can see several indications of who is the threat actor. Of course, for them, it's marketing. They want to promote what they're doing. So you can see who they are, Spox, and they are very nice to share their Telegram channels and the email because they want to sell it, and they also offer support. So if you have a problem to set up the phishing kit or it doesn't work, you can actually contact them to get more information or more help on how to do so. This is an operation. It's not just a random 14 years old in his underwear in the garage. This is an operation that is intended to make money. Okay, who is this Spock? Let's try to identify a little bit further. And this is exactly the intelligence work that we're doing, right? And this is where the human factor can make the difference between, okay, I have a phishing site, to I understand what is the root source. So the threat actor information, as I mentioned. And we also know about advanced techniques that this phishing kit is using, and we'll talk about it in a few minutes. So we actually identified Spox, as we saw with the Telegram channel, and we started talking to Spox. And this is, again, another example of how you do virtual human operations. So he's trying to sell. And it's not only NetBank that he's targeting. Actually, he's very productive, as we can see. He or she, I don't know, has many different banks could be targeted. This is new phishing kit. He's very proud of his new development. He has a roadmap, different capabilities, and he's a very friendly and an affordable price for $200. You can actually get that and your own phishing campaigns. Would you buy one of those for $200?
If I was a criminal, probably yes. But my question would be like, what is the lifespan of that $200? Because if he's selling it to hundreds or whatever, thousands of criminals, once the banks understand this phishing kit, what would the lifetime value be of that phishing kit?
Let me give you an idea, right? So have you ever tried to set up a new version of a bank website and release it to the public? It's not something that happens in days. If I want to release a new version to the main bank application or the website and the login, okay, it will go through usually weeks of work. Definition, development, testing and staging, waiting for the maintenance window, upgrading, doing it in. This is a bank doesn't change their main production system in a day. Of course, there's always a cat and a mouse type of interaction here, but it should work for enough time. Of course, it could be so good that even if they change something, and the audience, the target, still believe it's the bank. So, for example, if you change the logo or the way their website looks like, the audience may not be aware that this is an old logo or an old appearance. They will still believe because that's what they remember. So I would say there is different reasons why this could work for quite a long time, and this could be a good investment. And we agree that $200 is what people spend sometimes on transportation in a week in some of the countries. So let's take the next step here. So we identified and we see that they are happy to sell, and we try to investigate the source further. The goal is to identify and try to attribute also what are these and why they're doing it, and is it a nation state or is it a financial motivated threat actors, and there are different techniques to do so. In many cases, or in some cases, we're actually able even to pinpoint the specific real physical person that is behind it. It's important if you want to go to the police, for example, to press charges against a threat actor. Of course, it's not always possible. But when we continue the investigation, we identified that there is actually several capabilities that are related to this. And you can see here that the threat actor is actually suggesting that this is not just a regular one, this is a true login. So they're actually promoting some of their functionalities. And with this, and there are other functions for this advanced website, I will just remind what is a true login. So true login is where not only that there is a simple website that is looking like the original one. In this case, we're actually talking about, let me press kit or site, actually also uses reverse proxy between the phishing website itself and the real bank login page or customer login page. So what happens, you are actually logging in, and once you log in, you're actually transferred in the background to the real page. So if there's one-time password or there's other tokens that you need to put in place, this will actually work. So the reverse proxy will log in your behalf. And then the content that you are connecting or collecting from the real website will be transferred to the phishing website. So you actually have the feeling that you're in the real website. In the meanwhile, of course, the threat actor could collect whatever they want from your website, and of course the sessions to be able to conduct things later on. So these are advanced phishing kits that are not only collecting credentials, but also are able to bypass some of the one-time passwords and some of the other more security techniques the new websites are putting in place. We all understand why this is much more effective than a standard website. Maybe let me stop here, Brandon, to see if you want me to elaborate on anything.
Yeah, no, that's super fascinating and scary at the same time.
This is business. Just like we are creating 1,000 startups in cybersecurity, there are very highly motivated threat actors that want to gain, and they don't care not to sleep well at night, or maybe they are sleeping well at night, I don't know. But this is what we have. So you can see that in the configuration file of this phishing kit, there are actually different configurations. For example, you can define if it's true login, yes or no. You can decide whether the text will be sent out, or there will be some encryption, or will they sell it to email, or how do we share the information that the phishing site is collecting. There are different configurations, and we can see some more encoded text over here. I remember also the example from before. So what we can do, or what we can suggest others to do as well, is try to take the encoded code that is promoted here and try to decode it to identify what is the actual code behind it. So this encoding is a very standard technique in development, which allows us to reduce the code, zip it in a way, and also hide some of the context. But if you know what you are doing, you can actually decode it back. So what we can see here is that this is part of the payload that the bank is, or the phishing site is working on. And we can see that for this phishing site, for this phishing kit or this true login, we can actually identify what are the technique that the phishing site is using to communicate with the bank login page. So remember that you need actually to get into the bank login page. So once you do so, you can create a fingerprint of what is a real person that is logging into the phishing, into the real banking site, or what is the phishing site that is connecting, because we now understand how they do it. So we actually create an IOC, an indication of compromise, and once the bank is actually aware what they need to change, they can actually identify within their systems that this is coming now from a phishing site and not from a real person. And with this, of course, make the phishing site not working anymore. So here you can see different steps in an investigation of very sophisticated, one out of many phishing kit that is distributed out there.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with computer vision, but I know that computer vision can be used as another layer to look for those kind of visual anomalies in the fake login pages. Because as you said, they can just change the logo or the design to make you think that you're actually in the same website, but it's not.
I believe that there are very effective techniques. Computer vision is definitely one of them. And this is many cases relates to when you receive already the email, or that you are receive the URL that or someone analyzes the URL that the victim will be sent to in order to see if there is a differences. But this is, as we said, the cat and the mouse game. We are trying to tackle it from a different. We're looking from the outside. We're looking from the threat actor. So we're trying to identify it before it is actually effective. For example, for phishing, we are tracking, all new domain registration, and we are doing typo squatting algorithms to identify whether one of our customers has a new website registered on their name. Just again, last week with one of our prospects, not yet a customer, we've identified that instead of I would not say their name, but instead of the name of the company.com, they would have had an L, and someone registered the same domain with a double L, which is very hard to distinguish when you look at it. And we identified there are all kinds of subdomains are exactly in the structure of the original site. And then they add an MX records, which means it's used to send emails. And it was in the preparation of building the phishing site, because there was still no content if you try to surf to that. But if we're able to detect it early on, then we can already take it down and interrupt the efforts of the threat actor. Sometimes by pushing them hard back, they will just try to go to a different target if they see that you are able to detect. And again, I think this is some of the power, because they just want to go towards easier, right? Unless in most cases, this is the effort they're doing.
Where would you say that a threat intelligence program sits in a company's cybersecurity maturity model? Has it primarily been in more mature stages, and is that changing, or where does it sit today?
We have different companies that are in different maturity and are all using Cyberint. So some of them are very mature. They have an effective SOC operation. And then we're working with a day-to-day SOC, with sometimes they're even a threat intelligence expert that within that is the consumer of our work. And then in parallel, we work with a CISO to give him the more strategic view, and even sometimes with the board. I am a few times in a quarter talking to boards of our customers to explain, to give this perspective of what is the risk and support the CISO. So our goal is to verify that the organization is aware of the risk. So maybe that's a very important element of a program, that we're able to illustrate the risk in an effective way to non-cyber personnel. So this could be the board, could be the management, could be peers in different units. So when the CISO is pushing for secure development or for cyber awareness on all of those, people don't think, hey, just a waste of time. Another check the box thing I have to do is, okay, I need to see this phishing training whatsoever. We really want them to understand their organization is at risk. And when we are able to provide them evidence of those, just like I showed you a few examples now, it makes the cyber team much more effective within the organization and more powerful, and sometimes also get more budget. So this is one side of the maturity of our customers. The others, we have merely an IT person that understand that he does not have enough information on what's not working, right? Internally, he knows all the problems, but he needs someone that is coming from the outside to give them, hey, here you have something open, a port open, the service that is not well configured. Here is a technology that actually has vulnerabilities, and focus your time to patch this and upgrade this, rather than just responding to tickets from your internal people. as well as helping the CEO to understand what is the risk to their business. That's, of course, not the majority of the companies, but I would say there's also in the entire span.
So you're saying it's becoming more accessible for smaller companies because potentially of the technology and also the fact that you can prove immediate ROI when you need budget for cyber, but why? So here's why. We can show you XYZ. This is your risk profile, and it's much easier to do now by the sounds of things with the types of programs and reporting that you can provide.
Definitely, yes, agree. And because we are a SaaS platform, we can also have models that are financially very attractive, even for smaller organizations that don't have a lot of budget. So we are in the entire scale here.
And where do you see the threat intelligence category going in the next 2 to 5 years?
I think there are different indicators that this is very important. This is only going to grow. I think both analysts see CAGR, year-to-year expansion very high. We see this with some of the acquisitions. So there were like 4 acquisitions of company in our domain just in July this year, which shows the importance and the fact that the big players understand that they need to have an element like that within their portfolio. Those other companies in different domains are asked by their customers, hey, I understand this is important. So customers are more aware of this importance, and they want their main providers to give them those elements. And this is why we see acquisitions as well. So I think some companies will grow with many more customers, and others will be integrated into large cyber companies where they see that as a missing angle. But in 2 to 5 years, I would expect that all companies would have digital risk protection and external attack surface management or monitoring as part of their basic part of cybersecurity.
As we close out here today, can you give us 5 tips when building out a successful threat intelligence program? What does that look like?
First of all, understand that you don't know everything, right? Companies like ourselves are really expert in the domain, and we come as an advisor to our customers. We found it a great partnership if people can learn. Again, try to understand, do I want a pinpointed solution? So do I want only a solution that looks for phishing, external phishing, and only solution that looks for social media impersonation, and only a solution that looks for attack surface management? Some companies prefer to have 10 different solutions from different vendors. Or do I prefer to have a solution that caters for all of those capabilities in one platform, where in my perspective and my vision, it is easier to operate, it's less integration, and of course, the 1 + 1 = 3 in this case, because the different modules can fit one another. And then I also just read again the list of recommendations from GARD. You must have a human element. You cannot just buy technology because, as I gave some examples, it just doesn't work this way in intelligence. So you need this human backup, and you need to understand that you have people behind us that are really in the quality that you expect, and not just juniors from university that have the right title but don't have the right skill set. So maybe it's not 5, but these are some of the tips I would provide to companies that are considering this. Maybe last point, try to understand what are you looking for. Are you looking for reactive intelligence, stream of IOCs that will potentially tell you what happened in the past? Or are you looking for proactive intelligence that will be targeted on you and help you invest your time wisely to decide what actually to fix? Because again, intelligence should help you make decisions. So you want to make decisions on the future, not in the past. Maybe I'll finish here.
No, you're good. Thank you so much. And before we really wrap up here, is there anything else you would like to add that you think we might have missed?
I want maybe to give you a perspective of one of the threats that we see growing very rapidly and impacting many of our customers. So there are 2 main attack vectors today. It's not like in the movies, right, that someone can hack immediately and all the 0 days, etc. This works in the minority cases. The majority, there are 2 attack vectors. One is phishing. This should be a very big concern for any organization, and they should have more than one solution, probably various layers to detect and to be able to prevent phishing from making an impact. Awareness, for example, is one of them. And of course, technologies like I think your company has, which is great to identify phishing once they land in the company's emails, and maybe us as an external layer to detect phishing sites and phishing being created. So definitely one area. And the second one is account takeover. And what we see in the recent month is a very big impact for information stealers. So info stealers are malware as a service. There are different brands, Redline, Azerol, Raccoon, etc., that people can operate. Again, just like show the phishing kit, you can actually buy it and then distribute a very effective malware into the people's machine. We see in many cases the malware is reporting what antiviruses there are on site. I can tell you, bypass easily Windows Defender and Kaspersky and others. And what does the InfoStealer does? It takes a snapshot of what they currently see from the browsers. So all the credentials that you save in your browser to make it easy for you to log in next time, they take all of those. They take documents, they take cookies that are good for session cookie or cookie hijacking attacks, as well as credit card if you have saved, and other things like addresses, etc. We see hundreds of thousands of those information stealers a month. We develop a unique capability into more or less the CNC itself, in a way that gives us the data that is coming from the CNC. And what we can see is in this log we can see the URL that they are logging into, the username and the password, all in clear text, very easy. Usually what those will be doing later, the threat actors, they will be selling it in Genesis market or in Russian market. These are two marketplaces where credentials are being sent. What I would put a lot of attention and verify that I receive is a good fresh stream of leaked credentials, even from external hacks that have been published, but more today on actually malware's command and control InfoStealers that are collecting. We are again seeing hundreds of thousands a month. And this, of course, will be once you have an access to an account. It could be a bank account, could be an enterprise account. From there, the next steps within the organization are much easier. It's much easier to send another email from an account. You have control if to get access and permissions, etc., and trust from other people in the company. So this would be maybe the second attack vector that I would put in high attention for people who listen today.
You reminded me of something that I forgot to mention when you were showing the phishing kits, is that I think we all are like hyper focused on the outcome of ransomware and how do you get back up online and restore and get back to business. But we forget about the mechanism that deployed the ransomware, which is, I would say, in the 90% plus range. It's phishing, and the phishing kits are a huge problem if it's that cheap and that accessible. I think there's not a huge focus on, okay, how are we going to fight back at scale against the scale that we're being attacked? So I thought that was interesting to shift the focus on like the prevention rather than the solution at the end once you've already been compromised. And all the headlines is just talking about ransomware, not about behind the scenes, what we're actually up against in terms of the ecosystem behind the dark web.
I agree. Threat actors are smart and they're looking for the easy wins. This account that is being collected either through phishing, from information stealers, just from a leaked databases, etc. And then they're in, and then they will deploy and from there, then you have a bigger problem, I would say. The challenge is how to convince people that it didn't happen to them yet, that they need to invest money in protection, where the same money could go to other things that will grow the business. I think some companies still believe it will not happen to them. And maybe this is part of our challenges in the cyber industry, to come up with cost-effective solutions for managers to understand that this is must-have to allow them to continue with their day-to-day business and not be worried by 20 million ransom requests or other customers of them saying, how did you not protect my data later on? Yeah.
And to close out, I know you don't like using the buzzwords AI, ML, but when you're up against this scale and accessibility for phishing kits, does it not make sense to utilize automation, AI, and ML to help fight back at scale? Because surely a human cannot defend against hundreds or thousands of attacks on a monthly basis with the ease that the attackers have it and the technology that they have at their fingertips.
Definitely. I think our goal is to be able to automatically detect phishing kits, deconstruct them, understand how they work, to then look for those patterns that will be for the phishing side. So we want to be one step ahead. I think we've identified today, I believe, more than 2,000 phishing kits, and we have an automatic mechanism to identify more. For example, then to extract from the phishing kit, sometimes they have the database of credentials being collected, collect those in order to understand who's been victims. Without automation, we cannot grow. That's why we have a very smart and good R&D team here. But I would say the other side is to have the right analysts that can, they direct the development, the product to the right direction to understand what's the next things the threat actor are doing. So it's always a battle. First, finding something, then extending the investigation, identify or what it actually is, and then giving the R&D team to create an automation to detect that. And yeah, this is our day-to-day activity. This is our expertise here.
Yeah, I think people shouldn't be concerned about AI and machine learning taking over their jobs. You will always need humans and machines working together. Hopefully, humans can do the more creative, challenging, and problem-solving tasks versus those repetitive, boring, mundane tasks that I'm sure also aids in the whole cyber burnout discussion.
There's no need for a human to reset the password to detect the leaked database. We can do automated. Some things do require expertise to stop things before they happen. So I do believe in the combination. For me, this is maybe the lesson here. The combination of machine and human will bring the added value, at least in our area, right?
So I could definitely speak to you for hours, but we got to wrap up here today. And I know you have a busy schedule as well. So I really appreciate you taking the time to chat with us today on Cybersecurity Heroes. But before we go, if people want to connect with you, chat more about this threat intelligence and perhaps even your services, how should people reach out to you? What's the best way?
All communication medias are open. I usually respond very quickly. Either LinkedIn, you can find me Yochai Corem, or CEO of Cyberint, or Yochai, which is Yochai at cyberint.com. This will be two very easy ways to connect with me. I believe we're in a community, right? So I'm happy to find the right people to work in Cyberint. We look for always the best talent. We always have room for one more person that has the right skills and more than that, attitude. People who want to learn, that understand they're working in a team and want to enjoy. I wake up in the morning, I smile, and I want to enjoy the rest of the day. I want my team or the entire population within Cyber to also enjoy day-to-day. So I'm looking for those people. And of course, if people want our technology or think that it could be valuable for their protection, of course, also why we are exposing ourselves in this very interesting platform that you created. Brandon, really, thank you very much for inviting me. It was really interesting. Thank you.
Thank you. And we're definitely on the same page. So I'm really glad to hear, and good luck with all your future endeavors. So everybody, thank you so much for tuning into Cybersecurity Heroes, and we'll see you next time.
That's a wrap for this episode of Cybersecurity Heroes. Practical and experiential knowledge on a day in the life of security heroes. Catch our next episode by subscribing through your favorite podcast platform. If you're listening in Apple Podcasts, please leave a rating for the show. They really help a lot. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time.